So friends, this is going to be a long one. Be prepared. It's probably going to be an hour from here. But yeah, I'm going into each of these headphones, putting them side by side for y'all. So definitely, watch this in bite sizes. I put sort of timestamps in the YouTube scrubber to help along if you guys, exit the video, want to come back to a section. Anything I can do to help you guys sort of navigate this video. It is a long one, but I appreciate you continually watching and tuning in. So let's get with the video.
So hey friends, welcome to this week's video. Obviously the past few weeks we've been talking about these three headphones, and I want to make sure that I'm doing a comparison before you wrap these up, and I figure out what I'm going to return, because there's no way in hell I'm keeping $800 of headphones. I'm not at that stage yet. But yeah, I just want to make sure that you guys get your own sampling out of this without having to necessarily jump through the videos. Obviously I do appreciate when you guys do watch all my videos. That definitely helps my channel, but I wanted to make sure that there's a consolidated thought here so you guys get to hear these a little bit more side by side without switching around. I also want to please forgive me for any sort of random cuts you might see on this. I'm still, for some reason, battling allergies because Boston has been raining and blooming and raining and blooming, and it's wrecking my sinuses. And Mother Nature is constantly punching me in the face right now. So please forgive me if you see some random cuts. I'll try my best in post to like smooth them out. But I might be talking and this big booger is just gonna fucking shoot out my nose. But anyway, I'm gonna try to keep you away from that. I'll censor it if it does happen. But yeah, let's move on and just talk about these headphones, because I think there's a lot to consider here, and I want to make sure that if you guys are in the market for true wireless earbuds, we'll see if these new guys on the $300 will meet any of your needs. So obviously the first one we want to talk about is the case. Boom. This is the lineup that we got right now. In terms of smallness, I will say that the Sony seem like the smallest in terms of like overall fit in hand and everything. However, they are a little bit round. And just a slight bit thicker than what the Master Dynamics and the Bowers and Wilkins have. So while it is small, if you stick in your pocket, it's pretty obvious just because of that bulbousness of it. The Master Dynamics are very sleek just overall. They have nice curves, it's a certain shape, and they'll fit into that fifth pocket if you have a 5-pocket jean. So that's what I really like about that one. It's really easy to snug into that area. And then this one, I originally hated this case the most just because it's the biggest footprint. It's a fat stubby guy, which is just very obvious in the pocket, but it is slim enough, and it has that nice taper that makes it fit into that fifth pocket in your jeans. So really, it's not that big of a deal. What I will say is these suck in terms of batteries, just because you got 20 hours, and then I think either of the earbuds is only like 4 hours. So it's not the greatest. Sony has less, it has 18 hours, but the earbuds last 8 hours with ANC on. So 12 hours if you don't have ANC on. So the overall package just gets you a lot more. But this one's just really hampered by the battery. And it's big as F. So that's what's annoying about that one. But if you're looking at case, obviously the Master Dynamics have done a wonderful job here. It's super pretty. It's hefty. It just feels nice. When I open and close the hinges, it's just satisfying. So that's what, I just really can't complain about it. And the indicators are nice and pretty as well on the front there. Let's see. But the two gripes about it are, it's gross. Like if you get the silver one, you can just see like the gross stuff about it. Let me see if I can get it on there. But you can just see all the fingerprints that attract this. So if you're looking at the Master Dynamics, again, I would recommend get the matte black version of it. It's more brushed metal look. You will be limited to only the black or the white earbuds. So if you were looking at the brown or the blue, you're stuck with this case. But I would suggest going with the matte black case. The only thing that's really holding this back outside the smudginess of it is also the fact that these two guys do wireless charging. This one does not. If that's important to you, obviously. It's not that important to me. I don't wireless charge a lot of things, but I know that a lot of y'all definitely do that. So if that's important, obviously Master Dynamics not for you, but for my recommendation, that's the best case. So onto the earbuds. That's another thing. So the earbuds for the Master Dynamics, to me, I think are the best design. Just because they seem so pretty. Like the ceramic build of them and just the overall sleekness of them are great. Ear tips are a little bit weird, but they're in your ear, so you never see them. But if you can see this in comparison to the Bowers Wilkins, the Bowers Wilkins definitely stick out. I'm trying to get this flat. Stick out a little bit more, and it's a little bit more noticeable on ear because obviously it's metallic and it actually sticks out. Since the controls are not touch on the Master Dynamics, they hide them on the top ridge of the ear tip or earbud. So they just seem a little bit more sleeker. They hit across your head a little bit more flushly, so you can hide that as you need. Same thing with the Sonys. So the Sonys are the same size in retrospect to the Bowers and Wilkins, but they also just stick out a little bit more, or they just seem like it because they have a bigger footprint on the, what do you call it? They have a bigger footprint on the touch sensor. Because there's that touch sensor and the bone conductor, that overall footprint on the outside is much bigger. So they're going to stick out a little bit more. Even from the side, they're going to look bigger. If you look at the Master Dynamic or the Bowers and Wilkins, they're like the same size. Like if you look at them very closely, like they take up about the same footprint overall. Whoop, let's see. But because the touch panels here are just flush with the earbud and they have that bone conductor, the Sonys just seem a little bit more bulbous and big. So even when you have them on head, they feel like they sway a bit just because of that bulbousness. While on the Bowers and Wilkins, it's flush in the ear and then the controls stick out a little bit more. So they just seem a little bit more sleek on head, and they look a little bit better. But none of them look terrible, but it's just not going to win any sort of, like the Sonys aren't going to win any sort of design category for me at least. They're definitely much improved from the previous gen, just when you put them next to these guys, it's hard to compete. Hold up. Woof. Sorry guys. This is probably going to happen a few different times during this video, but thank you for bearing with me. But yeah, in terms of the overall design, I would say that yeah, this is the Master Dynamics. They're just sleek. They're very stealthy. They're very flat. They just look more elegant. So if you're looking about design aesthetics for the earbuds, definitely Master Dynamics. So case and earbuds, Master Dynamics, followed by the Bowers and Wilkins. Fit. Idle fit is where things start breaking down for the Master Dynamics. So those guys, if you saw my review, I had terrible issues with just having a fit for them. Despite them having 5 ear tips to use for them, I tried them all. None of them worked. Like, I just felt like it was constantly on the edge of falling out, and I had to adjust them. And, like, it's instead of just a fear, they would just fall out. So I don't know if I was in between sizes or what it is, maybe the shape of the ear tip itself, but it's just not staying in. So despite how much I've tried, how much I jammed it in my ear, it would find its way out over, a few minutes, like probably like 15 minutes, half an hour. I'm gonna have to fix it. I'm gonna have to adjust it. The Sonys take a different approach by actually upgrading their ear tips to foam. And this is something that I believe that more people should do, because the foam tips are beautiful. Like they, you can compress them, you get a better seal, you better get a better fit. Like there's just a lot of things from acoustic perspective that you get a benefit of, but you also get a fit perspective. You won't have to worry about things shaking out because they will just expand in the inside of your ear. So overall, I think that the Sonys making that switch is an improvement. The only thing that I would say is that I'd be concerned if you have small ear canals, because for me, I'm normally a medium or large ear tip, but for these ones, I'm a small. So if you have smaller ears than me, you may not be able to find a tip. And I haven't checked. I'm sure Comply will eventually make some ear tips for this, but you'll probably have to get a third-party tip. But Comply has been good about creating a tip for all of Sony's products. So you might have to just wait for that for a bit, but I think you'll likely have to get a third-party tip if you have small ears. In terms of the Bowers and Wilkins, these ones were just great out of the box. Like I put them in and I was just amazed with how light they felt, with how close to ear they felt, or just like how they just didn't feel like anything. It just fit in so snug, and after like the first song, I just lost track of them. They weren't like annoying. I didn't have to adjust them. They just sat in place beautifully. So definitely the Bowers and Wilkins are the best fit. And then, as we move into active fit, that doesn't really change that much at all either. So the Master Dynamics were actual trash, for me at least. I think that a lot of people are going to have issues finding a fit with these just because they are so... They're not really ergonomic. They're just big circles. They're very reminiscent to me of the Galaxy Buds Pro. But the Galaxy Buds Pro actually fit in well. They were, but they got rid of the wings to make them lighter. But I think that also made the fit worse almost. So it's hard for me to recommend these because I couldn't get through a workout. So if you saw my review, I was struggling. I brought all 5 ear tips to the field, and all of them fell out. So I don't know what to do, whether it's a sweat or whatever it is, but the fit obviously is an issue with the Master Dynamics in general, which also, could affect how things sound. I don't know, but it's something to consider there. The Sonys definitely were not an issue at all. They fit in snugly. I was easily able to get through my workout. I did have some areas where I felt like I needed to adjust them, but I think it was just because of the fact that they did have a little bit of sway to them. Like, as I mentioned before, they're a little bit more bulbous. They stick out a little bit more. So, like, as I'm doing cuts or I'm doing certain jumping, you feel a little bit of the stethoscope effect a little bit more. You definitely hear it, but just because they stick out a little bit more and they don't, like, sit closely to ear as the Bowers and Wilkins, I think that's the reason why I felt like I needed to adjust them. Did I actually need to adjust them? Not really, but I felt like I needed to. And then finally, obviously, the Bowers and Wilkins, which I never needed to. They felt perfect. I was super locked into my workout, and I never had to think about them falling out. I was initially in the first 5 minutes just because of this guy. But after, I did some pretty ridiculous stuff with my running drills, I had no issues with them. So I felt like I could have worked out all day. In fact, I did do a longer session that day just because of the fact that I didn't have to worry about any adjustment. The only thing really holding it back, as I mentioned before, is that I only got like 4 hours out of it. Could I have done a whole day? No. But with these ones, I definitely could have. But I'm not going to go in the field for 8 hours. But it's nice to have that option, especially if you're coming from work or you're doing like you're taking the subway to a field or something, or the gym. You're using it at that point. If you're staying in the gym for 2 hours, you want to make sure that it's going to last that 2 hours. If you just got off the subway after a work day, like, you may not have that whole battery, There's just instances. Battery's a weakness for sure. But overall, I will recommend either the Sonys or the Bowers. Sonys probably, in terms of versatile fit as well as, length. But if we're talking purely active fit, then it's these guys. So, microphones. So the microphones are interesting. They all performed all right. The Sony, what are you doing? It's been like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It's always the microphones that hold back their headphones. And it's something that everyone complains about every year, yet they don't do anything to solve it. I know that they brought in like bone conduction mics and all this other like fancy keyword stuff, but like, words are cool. Can you show me an action that actually shows that you did it? Because I still can't tell. Because the microphones are weak. Like, they're not even just weak in terms of the fact that you sound robotic, but you also sound quiet and you sound muffled and you sound not yourself. So definitely everyone knew that I was using these when I was using them. No one was really impressed with it. It just sounded like I was using my phone, like up to my ear. So there was no quality improvements from what I can tell. Still using past gen mics. I don't know. There's some buzzwords again, but not something that is noticeable. The Master Dynamics definitely sounded really clear, especially like in a quiet room, just because I don't know what it is, but their microphones are very, very clear. People liked how that sounded. They do have wind protection, so if you are walking around, the wind will be reduced. I will say that it still came through, and when it did, you might get a little bit robotic in how you sound. However, it does reduce the amount of feedback that you hear on the call, so that's always nice. So, yeah, I think that overall they're pretty clear, and people liked how that sounded. But I think based on what I've heard from my clients, the Bowers and Wilkins sounded the clearest. And if you saw my review, I did a recording outdoors when I was getting poured on by a thunderstorm, and it actually sounded extremely clear. Like, that recording sounded the recording sounded better than when I was in a quiet room with these. So if you're someone that takes your calls, you know, in a park or like walking around and there's a lot of ambient noise around you, like these are going to sound great. You're going to sound great to your audience, and you won't have to worry about, you know, getting muffled or getting cut off by external noises. But if you're in a quiet room, the Master Dynamics sound best. They sound definitely the most clear, the most natural. You get a little bit of distortion with these, but again, for some reason, I don't know what Bowers and Wilkins doing, because they don't have wind protection, they don't have anything. When there's stuff around you, they have a good, I don't know if it's an algorithm or whatever, that isolates your voice in a way that makes it super clear, like lifelike and natural. It's great. So conferencing, depending on what you're doing, I think these are probably the most versatile. But if you're just in a quiet room, like Master Dynamic for sure, just because again, their battery's super dope. While with these ones, you might lose the call and have to charge them. So any one of these guys will do good for your everyday calls. But I'll also just drop a sample here, so you guys can hear for yourselves while I go blow my nose. God.
So, I'm back from my waterlogged adventure, a little bit more dry now, so I think I can give you guys some insights on how this sounds indoors without a lot of distraction. But before we get there, I do want to make sure that we talk about that outdoor track, just because I think that came in super clear, like almost crystal clear. It's one of the better microphones I've heard, and there was a lot of stuff going on, and it was still able to reproduce my voice in a natural way with great clarity. So, big ups on that. I think the only thing that you probably saw there is towards the end of that track, wind started to pick up, and that's when there's a little bit of degradation in sound, and I started cutting out a bit. Again, it doesn't have the wind protection of the the MW08. So I think it's very, very clear. It's very, very crisp, and I haven't had any issues with someone saying that I came in muffled. So definitely clarity is very solid in that perspective. And even when I was walking outside, doing errands during meetings, I haven't had really issues with wind, despite weather not being the greatest in Boston right now. And I think it's because of the placement of the microphones. It's towards the back, so the wind kind of, doesn't get as affected because it's not up front. However, I think that proprietary technology that they have is doing a really good job about making sure it's isolating that sort of inconsistency from your actual voice. So whatever they're doing with that is actually great technology, and I think it's the reason why you're able to come in so clear even through the ANC. Voices are able to come in, and they're able to isolate that very, very well. Tell me what you guys think. Again, this is a very ideal scenario. I'm in a quiet room, locked away, just to make sure that I'm getting clean audio. But I'll turn on an AC and see if you guys can notice a difference. Ooh, okay. Focus. Alright, so that AC unit's on. It's about 4 feet away, window unit, blowing at full speed. Can you guys hear it? Am I still coming through clear? Hopefully I'll give you an understanding of a little bit of interference, but...
What do you guys think about those samples? Ooh, man, that's annoying. But we back. So, now that you heard the microphones, obviously those microphones will affect your ambient sound. But ironically, the person with the worst freaking microphones have the best ambient sound in terms of configurability and overall quality. The Master Dynamics, they're doing an alright job. It's not very configurable at all. I don't think it's configurable at all. It's just like you have ambient noise or not. You have ambient noise with wind reduction, and that's it. But there's not that much configurability, and stuff still comes through. Like, I would be sitting there and still have that wind issue. But with the Bowers and Wilkins, they do a slightly better job about making things sound a little bit more natural. So like the quality of the ambient sound is definitely with this one. But what's handicapped is that it's not that configurable. You have two options of, more or less. Pretty simple. Less is for your coffee shops and more is for your situational awareness. But, since they're presets, they may not fit exactly what you need. The fact that the Sonys, you can slide it up and down and there's 20 levels is extremely beneficial because it's more adaptable to your environment. So if I need all of the sound because there's like a traffic jam or, I'm trying to maneuver between cars, definitely the Sony is you hear all of that. But I can also scale that back to like almost no ambient sound or very minimal if I'm in a coffee shop or stuff like that where I just need to like focus in on voices. And the fact that you can focus on voices So there's a great benefit for this. So the technology behind it all and the configurability, Sony just wins out. So I would say for the Ambient, Sony's definitely the best. But again, here's some samples of what the Ambient sounds between the guys. All right, so tell me what you guys thought, but let's move on to ANC. And that's kind of where I was getting confused a little bit. But ANC, Master Dynamics sucks. That's the only way I can really describe it, is that it's terrible. Like, I don't know if it's because I couldn't get a good fit with these, but again, I tried all 5 things, all 5 ear tips, and could not get a good seal or fit where it would stay. But even on ANC Max, all I got was, I could still hear things come through. I could hear conversations come through while I was walking the street. I literally could hear everything on the TV that was in the other room. Like, it did not cancel out that much. So like, despite having pretty solid microphones, they don't really know how to stop ambient sound from coming in. They can't really provide that isolation. And I will say again, like, maybe that's just because I can't get a good fit and these are just foreign to my ears. But I feel like that should be resolved, and you can't really I don't think you can call these ANC headphones. In fact, you might as well just keep them off, because just like charge me $100 less, because I don't get any benefits from that ANC. The Bowers and Wilkins does a decent job about blocking things out. I will say high-pitched noises still come through, so like subway noise, horns, whistles from sports things, those will still come through pretty consistently. But any sort of low drone, if you're flying or you're in a car, you won't hear any of that, bus, whatever. That stuff will come out. So it just depends on what your use case is, but definitely the Sonys went out. Again, worst mics, but the best technology in terms of identifying that sort of interference noise and giving you that isolation you need. The ear tips probably help out with that too. The fact of them being foam and being able to create a better seal in your ear definitely would contribute to the fact that you can't hear that much. Because even with with no mode on and it in your ear, you can't hear that much, just because the seal's so good that adding the ANC on top of that, it's just going to be like a library. It'll be very, very quiet. Obviously not as good as their over ears, but super commendable regardless. So if you're looking for ANCs and that's your top priority, definitely the Sonys. And again, we'll do another sample here so that you guys can hear the difference between these 3.
Noise cancelling on. Noise cancelling on.
So next we'll go over sound quality, because that's probably going to be the most important thing out here amongst these. And they all perform pretty well, I will say. There's just certain quirks. So if you're talking about best sound quality to me, I will say that it's the Master Dynamics. This is super clear, super punchy, very dynamic. It was just very pleasant. It was definitely the one that opened up my eyes the most when I first tried them on and I first got some, my first hour in. I was just very impressed with how they sound. Everything's very well balanced. The bass is pretty controlled. I didn't hear any sort of distortion, and it was good throughout its entire range. So like, it didn't matter if I was at 10% or 100%. Like, there was no distortion. Everything was clear. Vocals sound really good on this one. And I think I mentioned that if you listen to a podcast, like, people's voice depth and characteristic is shown the best with these. Like, it was just very, very impressive on hearing that, because you can hear the grit behind their voice a little bit more, especially with deeper voices. So to me, this is the most impressive. The only thing that sucks is there's no EQ. Again, I would like, as much as this out of the box sound is great, there's just no EQ for you to like tune in and tailor things to your ears as much. Again, something that they could do through a firmware update, but just out of the box, not there. In terms of the Sonys, I would say that these ones are very commendable as well. They've done a good job about not making it bass bloated this time around, at least to me. But it doesn't really matter because they have an EQ. So obviously these ones sounded extremely well once I tuned them. But even out of the box, which I'm going to show you guys a sample later, it sounds fun and it sounds it's a very versatile, safe sound signature that stays in control. It's not going to blow you away like these ones, but it's very reliable and it's very well tuned out of the box. But again, you can make these whatever you want. So that's the reason why these will inevitably just sound great regardless, because you have that flexibility. And then the confusing one of Bowers and Wilkins. It sounded great initially. The more hours I started putting on it, I just started noticing, and maybe it's because it was the third week that I did this and I was spending a lot of time with these guys. But like towards the end of the weekend, as I was doing more like dedicated listening, I did notice that there's just like lack of control in the bass. It just sounded really, really wobbly and very distorted. Just somewhat distorted depending on how bass heavy the song was. And then there was just portions of the mid where I just feel like I'd love to boost that up a bit. But the highs were good, like high vocals, horns. Those sounded very, very good. But it's just like the mids seemed like they were lacking a bit, and then the lows felt a little bit uncontrolled. So I would say that these are probably the worst. So if I was going to rank these, I would probably do the Master Dynamics, which overall sounds beautiful. Sony's sound all right out of the box, but once you tune them, they sound great. And then, the other thing with these ones is that they've obviously handicapped these. They don't have like the aptX LL, aptX HD. They don't have like the full suite of quality codecs that these two have. So these ones can accept higher, quality music with higher data rates on them, while this one can only do aptX standard, AAC, and SPC. So if you are a Tidal user, Amazon Unlimited user, or any of those sort of Deezer, any of those that have like high quality music and that's your preference, these ones won't meet your need. You might need to look at the more expensive PI7s for that, but we'll get into that at a later time. But for now, these ones I would recommend out of the box for this one, and then again for configurability, this guy on the Sonys. But stock tuning, let's go and listen to these guys and see what you guys think side by side. So let's talk about controls. I don't know which one sucks the most. I will say that they all... No. They're all missing something. Let's put it that way. They're definitely missing configurability, and that's what sucks. They're all pre-mapped, but for the most part, you can't adjust them too much. However, the Sonys win out on this one, just because they give you some configurability. The controls here, they have single tap, double tap, triple tap, plus a hold, and then they have 3 presets for each ear tip, and you can choose what the preset is. So you can either have volume controls, playback controls, or ANC controls, ANC ambient noise controls, which is great. Everything that you need. However, you can only map 1 to each ear tip, so you're missing 1 out. So I have ANC on my left, and I have playback controls on the right, meaning I have to control volume through my phone, which is annoying. However, if you look at competitors like the Jabra 75Ts, 85Ts, or the Sennheiser True Wireless 2s, they have all the same functions, but they let you map each control of the double tap, single tap, triple tap, hold on each side to whatever you want. And with that, you usually get everything that you need. Everything that you need from your ear tips. And I think that's something that all these headphones should do, just because of the fact, like, you know, everyone has different priorities, and it's not a nice feeling when I feel boxed in or I need to really live inside my phone. There's just certain instances where I just don't want to have my phone around me, and it's usually when I'm working out. Like, I would like to have that volume control, but also have ANC, but also be able to, you know, play around with my tracks. I think the gym is the biggest thing for me of, like, I just don't want to bring out my phone. Or even when I'm on a subway, I don't really want to bring out my phone. I'd rather just tap my earbuds. So that's the reason why Sony's there. They just need to push a firmware update to give us the customization. But also, in terms of their ear tips, they are the most responsive of the bunch. I never really had issues whether it was raining or whatever. All the taps seem to work out fine. They have good confirmation tones, so you know when you've done it correctly. So that's what's missing out on some of these. But the big struggle here is what sucks the most. I'm going to say the Bowers and Wilkins. The Bowers and Wilkins probably sucks the most just because it's inconsistent. So these ear tips, they started out okay, but as the week went on, they just got worse over time. So, like, they don't have great confirmation tones, so sometimes I don't know if I'm doing a double or triple tap well, or like what it recognized. And the other thing is that those taps just don't function all the time. So there's lag. It doesn't respond very quickly to those gestures. So I just don't know what I'm doing, essentially. It just doesn't ever feel like it's consistent like it is on the Sonys. So I find myself fumbling a lot with that. And I think by the end of the week, I just gave up. It was just straight a headphone, and everything else I did was on my phone. Again, super, super annoying. The reason why I was having some time trying to understand if I wanted to proceed saying that the Mastering Dynamics sucked is just because while they do have tactile buttons when they're off ear, when they're on ear, they feel a little bit more spongy, just because I gotta hold it in place and do all that sort of stuff. And with the poor fit considerations already, me having to press a physical button that is like downward, like, because it's not the outside like the Jabra, which again, if you're looking for tactile buttons, the Jabras do it the best to me. They just have the button on the outside. This one has a rocker and a button for the power, as well as the different ANC modes. No. Playback, which is also crazy. So I'll get to that in a second. But they just feel more spongy, and if I'm having fit issues already and I'm pushing down on this earbud, I'm moving it around, and it's just getting worse and worse. So it's hard for me to say that you're gonna have a consistent fit and they're great controls, because they mess with that. The other thing that's really weird about the controls here is, like, they're responsive. I will say, like, once you click them, they're responsive. They're a much better experience than the Bowers. But, you know, you have a volume rocker on this side, and then you just have a power button on this side, which you'd imagine that I could just use the volume rocker to just say, like, hold up button or hold the plus button would give me next track, hold up the back or the negative button, and it would give me previous track, and then the ANC would happen through this button press here, but it's opposite. So if I want ANC, I think it's the up button, and if I want ambient noise, it's the back button. And then if I want playback controls, it's single, double, triple tap, which just seems kind of stupid to me. It just feels like it's more intuitive to have, like, all your playback features on one side and then your ANC and power on the other side. So I think it's just, again, I would remap these if I could, but you can't. There's just definitely some control reconfigurations that could make that a little bit better experience, but it's not as bad as this. So like I just kind of want to chuck these because this was super frustrating by the end of the week. But Sony, king of controls, definitely go with that. Let's see, connection. All of them connected all right from a distance, but yeah, these guys are good. But the Bowers and Wilkins is disappointing because actually the Master Dynamics suck from a range. That's what I would say. Like I think at 10 yards, I was already getting breakups in connection. So that's why that was frustrating. I didn't imagine that these could get any worse. So actually I was really impressed when I took these on the field because I could get 40 yards. I could round to the 40-yard line on a football field and still get a solid connection. It was only breaking up at 50. So that fits about the promise that they put on the rating on this one. This one was rated like 100, 120 feet, but I was only like at 10 yards. It's 30 feet. Like that's nothing. Like I couldn't get that far away from the source. But these ones I could. Sony's I had no issue at all. Connectivity was great on these. I don't think I did a distance run on that one just because I didn't think about that shot. But these ones didn't have any issues. I could literally put this in the center of the football field and I could run anywhere. So I wasn't having much connectivity issues on this one. But despite this one having the Bowers and Wilkins having great connectivity initially, they got worse over time. So they had the weird quirk of when I was laying flat, I was getting broken up signals even if my phone was right next to me. And then as I was using these more, I was starting to lose connectivity on my right earbud. So like while things were still connected to my phone, my right earbud would start like shorting out or like it would start like breaking up and I would just lose connection with just the right earbud for some reason. And I tried to double check if it was just because that was the second earbud that I put in, so it was the slave. But I did put this one on first, and it was the right one that was consistently breaking out. And I was just thinking that it was my unit issue. But then someone in the comments mentioned that they were having the same issue. And the day that it happened for me, that dude commented and was like, "Connectivity issues is trash. The right earbud keeps going in and out." And yeah, it seems like it's a widespread issue or a bigger issue than just my unit. So definitely not something that I can condone. So definitely not these. I mean, the connectivity is fine if you're close by. If your phone's on you the entire time, you're not gonna have issues. There's really no drops. You could lay flat and it'll be fine. But it's just the fact that you can't get that far from it. So if you're like, even if you're like just shooting hoops in a court, like 30 feet's not that far. So like you're gonna get some issues there. And I was on an open field. It wasn't like I was inside. There's no brick walls. I was outdoors. That should be easy to get to me. So they didn't do that great. So Sony's just connectivity king, control king. I don't know what else you want to say, but like, yeah, that's basically safe bet with the Sonys, especially if you're an active person. And I'm gonna have to blow my nose, so hold up. All right, we're back. Anyway, so last part I want to talk about is the apps. Sony, come on. Sony has an app that has been working for a very long time, and it's usually the reason why people pick Sony is because their app is always going to be good. It gives you the configurability that you want from a ANC and ambient sound perspective. It gives you an EQ. It has a bunch of like adaptive noise functionalities. It has sound profiles now, so it can like configure the fit in your ear as well as like make a profile specific to your ear, similar to what the Neurophones are doing. And they're just constantly improving it. So that's something that they've invested a lot of time and R&D into, and it's been making their headphones better. So I think app-wise, you're not going to beat Sony, really. I mean, you can definitely catch up, but you're not going to beat it right now just because it's so compelling of an offering. So again, I think the only thing they need to push is let us be able to configure our controls a little bit more. But after that, it's going to be great. But yeah, the only thing that it's I hope they can push this through firmware update. But the other thing that's missing is multi-connection. They have that on the WH-1000XM4s, but they don't have it on the WF earbuds. So that's something I'd like them to introduce. I was really surprised they didn't introduce it on these guys because everyone's been waiting for that, and when they put it on the XM4s for the over ears, everyone was super amped about it. So I'm not sure if you can push that in firmware, but I hope they can. But that is just one thing that the app is missing as well, or even the earbuds themselves. In terms of these two guys, they're just both bad. I don't know what to tell you. Like, so the Master Dynamics, I don't even know why they have an app at this point. Because if everything is controllable, like if I can't configure my gestures for controls, and I can't adjust my ANC at all, really, outside of just some ambient modes, I feel like everything is almost accessible through the earbud itself, and I don't need an app. There's no like, fluffy things out there in terms of like soundscapes like this guy, or like really that much configurability in terms of like other like fluff features. So like outside of firmware updates, I don't see why that app is even necessary. But then it's like a close second with this one, where they have a slightly better app because they let you adjust your ANC and your ambient sound with the presets, and then they add soundscapes, relaxing noises and stuff. But I still don't get any configurability from an EQ perspective, and I don't get a configurability from touch control selection. So these two just have like, to me, just like apps, because everything has an app these days, and they need to have that for like optics. But Sony has an app that's super powerful and makes the headphones actually better than they are when they come out of the box. So Sony's done a great job about like being cognizant of everything from the packaging to the execution to the app. Like it's just a very more cohesive package than these other two. They just suck on mics and multi-connect right now. And slightly on controls, but like they're just doing a lot better from the feature and experience perspective. So as we start like talking about like what I would recommend out of these guys, I'm gonna tell you, I really wanted to keep the Master Dynamics. I was actually trying to find excuses of why I wanted to, but the more I was talking about this with you guys, the more I realized it just doesn't make any sense. Because I was like, oh, maybe I can figure out the fit over time, just because this is so nice and they look sexy as hell, and I just like carrying this one around a little bit more. But the 10-yard distance sucks for working out for me, and the lack of stuff, like the crappy ANC, it's just holding me back because it's $300, like around $300, and to get a pair of true wireless earbuds that don't have solid ANC, and it's just a lot of handicaps, and the fit's not great, like it's hard to justify that. I knew I was gonna throw these away. I knew I was gonna return these after things started breaking down later in the week, so I am going to check out the PI7s, and hopefully those give me a little bit better. But like between the sound inconsistencies, the control inconsistencies, the just overall poor execution on these, I can't recommend these to anybody, and this is something that I definitely were getting rid of. The only reason why I was like trying to hold on for dear life on these ones is because the fit was so good, and I had such a good workout that day, and it was great, but everything else sucks. Everything else sucks. Except, the microphones are good. They were good for conferencing, but overall everything else sucks. And like, I would actually be okay with these if they had the same battery standards as these, but this is 4.5 hours, 20 in the case. Cool, it gets me through a day, but it doesn't give me any sort of solace in the fact that I can use these consistently for a long time. I'll just have to constantly be on the charge. So this is Sony's. Like, if you're looking for ones, while this doesn't shine in terms of like being number one in any particular area, except probably like ANC and the app, number two in everything is gonna beat out these guys any day. Because I think with the EQ and you being able to configure things how you want, and the fit being pretty nice in general, most people will be happy with this without giving up too much. Like, it doesn't hit number one on everything, but it hits everything. Like, that's the biggest takeaway that I've gotten from this, is that like, yes, this shines better in sound. Yes, this is a little bit better in fit, but it still sounds good. It still fits great. It has a better app. It has better ANC. It has relatively solid build. Yeah, it's not the most attractive thing, but the controls at least are consistent, and they're just no nonsense. I think I think Sony hit it out of the park from like 80%, at an 80% rate, and I think that's great. And I can't see that anything else would be as convenient without giving up a ton of caveats and like trying to justify it in your brain. If I'm trying to be pragmatic here in terms of value, like hassle-free, just your overall money spent, Like Sony's are the way to go, and I think that you won't regret it as much as you might with these ones. Like, I want to go with these ones. They look so good, but I know I'm gonna hate myself for it, and I would just be buying it for the looks, and that's it, and that's it. But yeah, it's the Sonys. Again, they come in beige. I like the matte blacks. I'm gonna keep the Sonys. I mean, I'm gonna return them all for now until I review the PI7s, just because I got literally like 4 hours before I gotta return these guys. But I'm gonna keep the Sonys in the day most likely, unless the PI7s blow me away. But given their crappier battery life and my lack of knowledge around if the controls will be better, I'm likely not. But who knows? They may surprise me. But I don't want to make sure that I'm returning everything to make sure that I get the one that I want, and I'm only spending money on the one that I want. But as it stands right now, and if you guys are looking at just these ones in this price range, because the PI7s are way more expensive, it's definitely gonna be the Sonys. $270 I think is what they cost right now. I'll put the price up here just in case, but I think that's gonna be the thing that makes most people happy. And they sound better than a lot of headphones out there. So yeah, thank you guys for having this conversation with me. I know it was a little bit more informal, and you know, I had to cut out of this screen a little bit because, man, my allergies are still killing me. Hopefully no snot came on the camera, but I'm sorry ahead of time if it did. But yeah, I appreciate you guys sticking out with this. If you have any questions about these headphones, definitely put them in the comments. I'm pretty responsive as of late because work has been a little bit quieter, hence why I've been able to get you guys these videos out more frequently. But yeah, definitely check out my social media. I've been adding shorts to make sure that we have some of that stuff pop up and attract new people to the channel. But we are tracking really, really well. We've seen a ton of growth since the last video. I think we're at 870 right now. We're trying to get 1,000. I don't really have a timeline, but I would just like to get 1,000 at some point. So like, if you guys could help me out by sharing this video, liking it, subscribing, commenting, doing all things that you normally do on a video that you like and love, definitely appreciated. To all my OGs and my new subscribers, thank you for continually watching along, and let me know what you guys want to see next. Again, the PI7s are going to be a nearby or near term thing. They are currently in the mail right now. Hopefully they come by next week. If they don't, I will try to get another video out there. I think, what was it, the mass drop pandas, I have an update on that one because I did get a new unit. There's been firmware updates, and some of you guys have been asking about how I feel about them to this day. Spoiler, I still use them, I still love them, but there are certain things that I want to bring up on those. But yeah, anyway, as always, appreciate you guys. See you in the next video.